Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another video. Welcome back to Maru week. Today we're going to be looking at two games actually. First I'm going to show you a really cool game from the Maru vs Reynor series. And then after this I'm going to show you a game from Maru against Scarlett. In which he pretty much beats her in 8 minutes with some really cool aggressive play. And in general, this game is also going to be a little bit crazy. The two videos before I showed you guys Maru's pretty much perfect macro game in TvZ and TvT. But Maru can also play some really weird aggressive stuff, which is honestly maybe even cooler to see sometimes. So let's go into it. Now I think this game he actually went for a CC first, a build that I used to really like, but I feel like recently I haven't really found a good follow-up for it, so I've stopped using it. But this build that Maru did here was actually very cool. I haven't tried it out yet, so I can't, you know, say how much it works for me. But it definitely looked like it has a lot of potential when I watched it here. So yeah, one thing to keep in mind that a lot of these things that Maru does are probably going to be mind games. I think this Maru vs Reynor series, if you guys have the chance to watch it fully, it was honestly fantastic. A lot of mind games, a lot of cool builds involved. Obviously, I'll be doing some more videos on this as well later on. Anyway, he opens with a command center at 17, followed by the barracks at 18. Pretty much a completely standard CC first so far. Gas after. Probably going to get a second gas with this SCV if I had to guess. Or maybe one shortly after, so yeah, pretty much that SCV. Okay. No SCV scout so far. Just one small tip, if you want an SCV scout with CC first, for some reason it feels confusing, but if you think about it, you should just SCV scout at the exact same timing. Because you don't really skip any SCV, so if you scout at the same timing for your opponent, it will just look like a regular SCV scout and they will not be suspicious at all. If you scout at any other timing than after your, with your 19th SCV rather, it's already going to be a little bit weird, I think. I don't know if they will be suspicious, but they'll definitely find it a little bit weird. Maybe they'll be a little bit more focused on the game. Obviously want to avoid that. So he goes for a Reaper here. Then I guess he's probably going to make a factory with this SCV. Let's see if he does that. Actually makes a depot instead, okay. This is an important move, by the way. This sounds a bit counterintuitive, but just so you guys know. CC first is a really good counter to regular pull first builds. And the reason for that is just that the CC is already finished by the time the links arrive. So there's nothing to cancel. And then if you use this SCV from the command center to make the wall, there's also not even a single SCV to harass. So if you do it like this build is basically a hard counter to just pull first build with a few links. So he's mining fully from the gas. And this is when it starts getting cool. He has a barracks. He made one Reaper reactor. Reaper is going to stay at home. And then he's going to add a second barracks. And not just that, he is also going to add a third barracks. And honestly, the last time I seen this kind of play, I felt like it was like 2014 or something. Like the really weird CC first 3 racks builds. And that's why I thought this was really cool. So he's going to switch over. I'm not sure how many Hellions he's going to make with this. Also makes the starport before the Hellions. I think this is quite important for denying the scouting. Like he wants to make a Viking with this. And he wants to kill those overlords that are on the side. Keep in mind those barracks hidden is pretty important. Because anything that's not like a straight up 3cc. It can be hard countered when scouted. So it's pretty important to hide these behind your bases. I feel like you could even consider making them behind your natural. Depending on where your opponents usually scout. So he gets his first 2 Hellions out. And then he's going to move out with them. The reason why he didn't move out with the Reaper, by the way, is that he was not making any other units for a while. And it was too late to cast the Zerglings mid-map. So if he moved out with the Reapers, Zerglings would have just walked into the natural and denied the little mining. So that's why he stayed at home for the Reaper. And he's going to make 2 more Hellions and a Viking. Going to get the reactors on both the barracks. Still mining from every SCV on the gas as well. I'm learning the build myself as we speak, by the way. That's why I'm looking at a lot of the details. So he goes for 4 Hellions. Oh, this is actually really unfortunate for Maru here. Like I said, this is a build you really don't want to be scouted. And Reynor actually played Overlord speed and he's going to scout it right away. So this is definitely a very rough start for this build. I think, honestly, if you do this build, I would actually recommend doing it on a different map. Maybe a map that's a little bit shorter. Because this is a big map for, you know, pretty much macro games and late game stuff. So even though this serves as a mind game, I feel like you'll hit too late. But it's also more likely that your opponents will play something like Overlord Speed. This map is pretty much the home kingdom of mech. So Reynor was honestly, I'm 99% sure Reynor was just looking for a fusion core here. But instead he found both the barracks, which is really unfortunate for Maru. So after the 4 Hellions, what he did was he swapped the starport on this reactor to make 2 medevacs and made a reactor on the factory, followed by 2 E-bays. Note, this is actually pretty crazy because these are 2 E-bays before a 3rd CC. Okay, this is actually a very crazy pattern of builds that you don't really see anymore. So keep in mind, if you try to copy this build does definitely not follow the standard patterns, as you can see. It's just denying some creep here. It's gonna drop into the main. One small tip I can give you, if you guys follow a Viking up with a drop, always just send the Viking when you're gonna drop. As you can see, he sent the Viking all the way here, across the map, patrols it here, so Reynor simply cannot see this drop coming, unless he got lucky with a Zergling, right? So at home, starting 1-1, followed by a 3rd CC. And now the drop got into the main unscouted, and now he can just stim in. You can see Reynor doesn't really have a lot of Zerglings because he didn't see the drop coming. Perfect scouting denial with the Viking, as well as the Hellions, of course, denying Zerglings on the map, as well as creep tumors. Even though he's not getting too much damage done, obviously the denial of mining time here is pretty huge. Gets 1 queen as well as a bonus. And that's pretty well done by Maru. I was getting the 4th gas here. That's actually slightly surprising to me. I would have expected maybe a 4th and 5th barracks before the gas, but alright. We obviously furrow King Maru in the builds. Ran by the Hellions into the 3rd. I do feel like this, when I look at the way Maru's executed this, there's a few things I would have liked to do different. And I like that because it feels like the build has a lot of potential. Like when I see a build and I feel like there's a few things I could have adapted, maybe do things different here and there to increase effectiveness. I always really like to see that. It's annoying when you play a build that only has one way to be executed and that's it, you know. Because then Zerg always perfectly knows which moves to blind counter and stuff as well. Now the mines being so fast is really cool. Normally you can't really push this fast because there's no mines, so you kind of just have to run away. Now with the mines he actually has a bit of a threat, a little bit of a stronghold in front of his base. And keep in mind, wait, is this a 1 mine drop? It's a little bit ambitious. Let's see if we get something done. Probably not, I guess. No, okay. But the attack on the front is really useful. Keep in mind, this game is very weird for Reynor as well, because this is his 4th base being denied. Normally when Terran pushes, they're either attacking your 4th or your 5th base already. Reynor is actually just on 3 bases. Like his 4th base has been getting denied by this opener. So even though Maru's got a late base himself, Reynor is really not in that great of an economic spot. He has 73 drones. Actually, I'm not even gonna cancel that. He has 73 drones, but he doesn't even have enough bases to use those on. And meanwhile, Maru is already starting on his 2-2. That's such a ridiculously fast 2-2, by the way, for a 2-base build. That's just because he got the E-base before the 3rd base. Second factory is pretty fast as well. Actually, his 2nd factory finished when the 3rd landed. That's pretty crazy. As you can see, this build is definitely for aggressive players. Like, because you're a little bit behind in eco and stuff, you definitely want to keep pushing with this. So you can tell that Maru is really sending all of his units across the map. This definitely does not feel like the kind of build where you do a little bit of pressure and then sit back. Like, you definitely want to go with this one. Let's see how Maru reacts to this. He's pushing at the same time, so this is going to be rough. Yeah, that looks like 10, at least 10 dead SCVs to me. Let's see, splits are pretty good. 11. Yeah, I mean, close enough. This is very well done by Reynor, by the way. This is something that's a bit underestimated. Reynor clicked the banelings, and then at the perfect time, attacked into this army here, so Maru wouldn't be looking at a home. Like, that was very well executed by Reynor there. And still pretty well multitasked by Maru as well. Definitely could have lost a lot more there, but instead lost 11 SCVs instead of 17, and did a lot of damage on the front at the same time. Now Maru, it feels like he's made a little bit of a mistake here. Or honestly, a really big mistake, because he dove in, but it's Mutalisks. So now he's gonna have 4 dead medevacs combined with 16 dead marines. And honestly, if something like this happened to me, yeah, this honestly feels like a disaster. I can't put it any other way. I feel like Maru was honestly doing fine. If you look at the game state now, 2-2 is almost finished, 4th base is on the way, Thor's drilling claw, everything is good. But this was just honestly too big of a loss. This was about 25 supply he lost. And I feel like the game went from maybe even slightly Maru favored to pretty heavily Reynor favored. Because Maru lost his pressure. And yeah, now Reynor can drone even more, take a 5th base, and he's going to be in a really good spot, especially with the Mutalisk already out, 30 mutas on the map. And yeah, honestly, that was definitely a bit of a game changer. Maru probably kicking himself a little bit for that. Here you can actually see the effect of the early 4th gas. He's making Thors 3-3 and stuff, and he still doesn't have these gases. I think he probably should have taken them after the 4th base, but even then, you can tell he was allowed to take them a little bit later because he took the 4th gas so early here. 3 more barracks on the way as well. I do have to say, this build flows better into the macro game than I thought. For how committed it was, the fact that he's already on starting 33, 8 barracks done, 4 CC and stuff at 10 minutes, that was very impressive. Like, I know obviously we're watching Maru and he's just slightly better than us, you know. I still think it's very impressive to hit those kind of timings. If you can get anywhere near those timings, even with the game going perfectly for you, honestly, you're doing fantastic. Now, let's see, he's playing as Mutas, so he's getting a double sensor tower. I think he probably doesn't always get these, but especially Reynor's playstyle is to always send in a lot of units, deny the 4th bases and stuff like that. So to me, this definitely makes sense to get a double sensor tower right away. Now, I kind of want to go to Maru's POV and see how he's going to deal with the Mutas from now on. Like, looking at this game, he's in a bit of a rough spot just after that last attack. I think this is definitely a kind of game I could totally see Maru win still. But yeah, losing the pressure against Mutas is pretty rough. Like, as you can see in the bottom, Reynor's on 95 drones, which is very painful. See what's on the map. Reynor's army does look pretty small though, 22 Mutas, a few Zerglings, but yeah, we all know what Reynor can do with those. And keep in mind, it's been a long time since I watched a Maru game against Mutas, but if you look at the production tab, at this point he's just making pure quality. He hasn't made Marines for a while. It's just been Marauders, Thors, and Mines. Because yeah, just Marines doesn't really cut it. You need Marines to deal with the Mutas and to have for the Lings. But if you just have Marines, Balians can pretty much just walk straight through you. So you can tell that Maru is really making pure quality at this point. I feel like one thing that surprised me a bit is that he hasn't started more CCs yet. I feel like this is definitely the point in the game where Maru will start like 5 more command centers. This is where the Marauders are really good, just straight up fighting against the Banelings. As you can see, those 2 Marauders tank 10 Banelings there. Not gonna complain about that. Now this I am really surprised by, is that Maru is actually making a Ghost Academy. Because Reynor legit doesn't have a hive yet. I know he's making it, but he doesn't have it yet. And I feel like committing to Ghost now would be very expensive, and Ghosts honestly don't do that much against Muta Ling Bane, right? Like, they can snipe the Mutas, but against the Ling Bane portion, they actually don't really do a whole lot. Let's see how Maru is dealing with all this madness. Yeah, I think Maru is falling apart a little bit against the Mutas. I think he underestimated how many Mutas it were. Honestly, it's very hard to see, I feel like. Because, like, to me it looked like it could be 13 Mutas, but in reality it was probably maybe like 23 or something, or 25. And then 60 Marines just don't cut it. And just like that, Maru actually got himself into a rough position. I honestly think the Ghosts are definitely a bit of a mistake here by Maru. I feel like he would have done better to, like, stabilize first. Get your Thors in position, especially get the 5th base up. And yeah, I'm gonna be real honest here. This was a $500,000 tournament, and I think maybe the pressure got a little bit to Maru, because Maru always has a very stable formula, and especially on Hardwire, he always cares so much about getting the 5th base fast. And yeah, I think he definitely botched it a little bit. Especially like not sending Thors back to deal with the Mutas in the main cost him a lot, because Maru was chilling on 80 SCVs. Right now he's at 60. Like, legitimately, this kind of looks like what my games look like when I defend Mutas. I think I'm doing a good job, but I kind of fall apart a bit all over the place. And yeah, I do have to criticize Maru a little bit, because I feel like he usually does better than that. Obviously, with the pressure, can't blame him. But still. But even then, he has stabilized relatively well. He's in 180 supply. And this is what I really like, by the way. This is a cool move. If you do get the Ghost out, he has like 6 Ghosts, I think, is it? 6 Ghosts. Then they actually start countering the Mutas pretty well. This is something that Soul does a lot. Basically just sending the Ghost. Like, if you get to like 8 or 10 Ghosts, you can actually deal with the Mutas very well. And if Maru had a little bit more time, it would have worked out fantastically. But his eco is just going to be a little bit too low. This sequence of the game is awesome, though. He sent the Ghost back to defend. He has just enough army back at home, right here, to defend the squad on the ground. And he's counterattacking, killing multiple bases. I think Maru was in such a rough spot in the last few minutes, but he's actually brought it back really well with these moves. Deflected the mutas, deflected the ground army, and now he killed 2 bases as well. I do think that the few mistakes he did make added up a little bit. You know, not defending the mutas properly as well as losing that 25 supply at the start. And this is starting to look like an irrecoverable game. I still think though, even though Maru is losing this game, I do think that the build was really awesome. And I still want to try it out. I think it also fits my style. It's definitely something that I would see like someone like Clem do, you know? Now let's see what this game is going to look like. Let's see. I mean, this replay is 2 minutes longer. I think for the rest of this game, you know, Reynor's just going to have too many units and overwhelm him. So honestly, I think we can skip through it a little bit, see how it plays out. And yeah, that's pretty much it, right? He's down to 115 supply, units are everywhere. I think we've seen enough of this game. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. In this game against Scarlett, Maru actually ends up going for a 3 racks. A build I've looked over before, but he did his own version. And more importantly, Maru had a really cool follow-up. I think one of my favorite kind of games to watch is when Terrans fail their openers, but still have the right follow-up to win. Because I feel like a lot of my games tend to kind of go, my opener works, I have a good shot. If my opener doesn't work, it gets very rough. And in this case, Maru had a rough opener with a build that was already not so popular, but he still won very convincingly in the end. And I just want to see how he did it. Obviously, like I said before, when Maru does a build, I always love copying it because his versions of them are so smooth and so streamlined and so perfect. So even though I went over 3 racks before, even though I used to build a lot myself, I do definitely want to see how he does the build. Now against Scarlett, this was actually a best of 3. The first game was a nice mech game. Maru won pretty fast as well in 13 minutes. Honestly, that's very fast for a mech game, right? Let's be real. And this was game 2 on Curious Minds. Definitely a theme we saw on Curious Minds on this tournament is that Terrans really like to go for 2 base attacks. A lot of people have been complaining that this map is good for Terran. And if that was the case, you would expect more macro games, right? Like if the map is good for your race, you'd probably play macro games and win that way. But instead, we've seen a lot of 2 base timings and stuff on this map, so I guess it must just be really good for it. I mean, if you look at the map, it checks out. You have this ledge over here, over the 3rd base. If they take the other 3rd base, you have the ledge over here. And the tank pushes just look really insane on this map. I feel like that's probably the staple. Like whether you do a 2 base or a 3 base build on this map, you definitely want to go for some kind of tank push. And also at the same time, the 3rd base is pretty hard to defend from Ling run-bys. It's very open. There's watchtowers that see the entire map, right? There are side blockers. So if you do play a normal macro game, you're probably going to suffer a bit from counterattacks. Anyway, this build was a reactor first by Maru, followed by 2 barracks. So he does cut gas. I was actually wondering about this. When I saw Cure do this build for the first time, he actually did not cut gas. But I was doing it myself because I like to make my own versions of stuff. But now I see that it's probably the correct version to do because Maru is doing it. You know, I don't like to assume that. If I see that the build goes wrong, I'll try to fix it. But I still kind of assume that when Maru does something, it's probably the correct thing to do, right? He's going to go for 3 barracks here really fast. Then he's going to slowly saturate the gas. Just a small tip once again for saturating your resources. If you cut gas, you usually just want to have 16 on your minerals like this. And then put the rest into gas. So if you want to make an extra barracks or something, you would also pull on from the gas to make it. You do not want to get below 16 out of 16 on the minerals. That's pretty much the point of cutting gas. Now Maru's going to do a very Korean move here. This is honestly a move that I never really understood too much. I think he just wants to pressure and force some units out, pretty much. And I think Maru here, I'm going to be honest here guys. Maru here is getting very unfortunate because I wasn't looking at Scarlett's opener, but I saw it in the production tab. Scarlett actually went for a gas pool hatch build. So her speed finished ridiculously early. This speed is like 40 seconds earlier than a normal build. So Maru is probably also like, what the heck? Like, this is why, you know? So Maru definitely getting a bit unfortunate there. But even then, I haven't really played too much of the 4 to 6 Marine moveouts myself. I don't think there's too much point in it, to be fair. I think most Zergs are used to this build, so they probably won't overdrone. For you guys, obviously, feel free to try it out if you notice that 4 to 6 Marine move out gets you a little bit more of an advantage, then why the hell not, right? Yeah, the point of this build is basically just to get stim and combat shields and move out when they both finish. And then you always follow up with some kind of tank push. So this build is obviously not very economic, right? Compared to a 3cc at least. So you do want to follow up with a strong timing attack. So basically you have a lot of marines. You're going to force them to make drone or units instead of drones. And then you can follow up with a really strong timing attack. Now I do want to see how exactly Maru does it. I think what's going to happen is he's probably just going to fly off one of those barracks, put the factory on it. That's the standard version. eBay goes down at like, what is that, 425. And then you can see, as his stim and combat shields are approaching, he's going to be moving out with his units. I do still want to look at the follow-up though. He's probably going to make a starport first with a reactor, if I had to guess. That seems like the most logical thing to do. Starport plus a reactor. There we go. And then this one is probably going to lift off and make a reactor somewhere else. Maybe not quite yet, but he'll do that at some point. And then this is pretty much how you play this. You always want to come from a bit of an off angle. If you play against a Zerg that's greedy, you can actually move in here. One tip I would recommend for you guys is to just do this scan. And if you see that there's like too many drones and not enough units, you can always go in. If you see there's like either a ton of links or already banelings, excuse me, you can just back off. You can kill the creep tumors and back off. And that's pretty much what he's doing. He's staying on the edge. For Zerg, it's really scary to try and surround this off creep because it's a big ball of marines with stim and combat shields, of course. But yeah, you can just stay on the edge, pick up some creep tumors, and then at home, as you can see, he lifted off one of the barracks to make that reactor. And now he's going to make the starport. And probably going to add a third city pretty soon. You can also do 5 racks after this, like add 2 more barracks, making this like a little bit more all-in. I think personally, it probably doesn't add too much strength to the push. So even though you can probably, you know, push a little bit harder, it's maybe not worth it to completely forgo having a follow-up just for that, right? At least in my opinion. I think I've seen some other Terrans beat really good Zergs with it. I remember Percival beating Rogue in GSL with the 5 Rex version. So if that is your jam, totally go for it. I definitely prefer the 3cc version a little bit. Now you see what Maru's going to do here. He's getting his first 2 medevacs. A lot of times Terrans would push out with the first tank. That's actually what I did for the most part. But I think Maru is going to go with +1 and 2 tanks. That seems to be his preferred version. And like I said, on this map it totally makes sense because you do want to hit like a slightly stronger tank push. Abusing this ledge over here, or this one over here, whatever way you prefer. So usually the triangle base is the third base, so you're going to end up pushing here. And as you can see, clearing the creeper has been pretty important. If Maru did not clear the creep, it probably would have been over here. And then all of a sudden doing a tank push here feels a little bit rough, right? So now he has 2 tanks in the medevac. He's going to bring the rest together just at the perfect time. And at home, he's going to go for that 3cc follow-up. And from this point on, at home, it's probably just going to be normal. He would add 2 more barracks, you know, an armory and an eBay. But this is really what it's about. You 3 racks, you pressured, you annoyed them, you cleared the creep. And now you have this absolutely killer position above their third base. There's so many marines on the bottom as well as on the top. And yeah, if the creep was out there, all these units would be buffed right now. It's pretty much an off-creep engagement for Scarlett, which is going to be really rough. Also, one really big side effect here was, because of the 3 racks, Scarlett did actually not make a lair very fast, and that's why the bailing speed is so late. If Scarlett went completely unpressured in this game, there probably would have been bailing speed already, which makes these pushes 10 times worse, to be honest. But because of the pressure, you know, because of the amount of units she had to build, because of the lack of lair, this pushes it extra strong. Like, holding this without bailing speed is insane. I think here, honestly, the best thing Scarlett could have done is probably give up this base and go here. But that also sounds like a losing move. Honestly, this is just a killer timing on this map. I think you can also do this on a map like Berlingrad, but it's definitely the strongest on Curious Minds. And yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you guys enjoy these wacky, crazy builds. If you guys want to play aggressive in TvZ, I would definitely recommend checking these out. And don't forget to sub and like, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios.